of Sunday, October 3, the Philippines has received more than 77.4 million vaccines doses against COVID-19. We expect that total supply will reach a million vaccine doses by the end of October. Also, more than 46.2 million doses have been administered to date. This will further strengthened by our opening of the vaccination for the general population starting this month. We will begin the inoculation of 12 to 17-year-old children in key pilot cities starting October 15. I now call on all concerned agencies, LGUs, and other partners and stakeholders to work together to make sure that our vaccination program proceeds as quickly and as problem-free as possible. By October this year, we hope that we will be able to fully inoculate 35 of the country's target population, with the end goal of reaching at least 50% by year end. We're also targeting to administer at least 50 million doses by the month's end. For the last quarter, we are confident that we can fully vaccinate more than a majority of our population before Christmas. I therefore again encourage our kababayans to have yourselves vaccinated.
The Newsday continues here on One News Now. I'm Charles Lejano. Former Senator Bongbong Marcos took his oath as a member of the Partido Federal ng Pilipinas. This means Marcos is no longer part of the Nacionalista Party. The 3-year-old PFP had earlier announced its endorsement for Marcos as its presidential candidate for 2022. But Marcos has yet to confirm his acceptance of this nomination. An election lawyer says Davao City Mayor Sara Duterte still has the chance to pursue the presidency as an independent candidate who is also endorsed by PDP Laban. But before this happens, the presidential daughter must first withdraw her certificate of candidacy for re-election as Davao Mayor. Romy Macalintal tells 1PH's Sa Totoo Lang that Sara may run as an independent candidate and can also simultaneously be endorsed by PDP Laban without an official nomination.
Hindi siya magpapanominate, pero yung PDP Laban, dala-dala pa rin siya na siya ang ini-endorse, although she is not nominated. Or she could allow herself to be nominated.
Macalintal also noted that COMELEC must make clear its guidelines for substitution of candidates, as he believes that those who filed their COCs are only paving the way for substitutes and have no intention of running should be declared nuisance candidates.
Yung mga substitution na yan, siguro dapat nililiwanag ng COMELEC. Kasi hindi porket pwede kang mag-substitute, ay ganun na lang ang gagawin mo. Halimbawa, nag-nominate sila ng isang kandidato na ang intention pala ay mag-withdraw lamang sa bandang huli. Kasi alam mo, hindi na dapat ginaganito yung mga ganyang inaabuso ang substitution. Dahil sa niloloko natin ang taong bayan. Ginagawa natin mockery, katawa-tawa. Bakit hindi tayo maging tapat sa taong bayan?
VP aspirant Lito Atienza continues to criticize incumbent Vice President Leni Robredo. In an interview on Agenda, Atienza said Robredo failed to be effective as the country's second highest elected official. Atienza believes that as the Vice President, Robredo should have swallowed her pride in order to serve the people. And he also claimed that he has never seen anything impressive with her while they were both members of the lower house. Bongbong Marcos, meanwhile, did not escape as well Atienza's criticisms. And for the former Manila mayor, Bongbong has to explain why a Marcos should be back in power.
kung sakasakaling tatakbo na naman ang isang Marcos, ay kailangan ipaliwanag natin sa ating mga mamamayan bakit natin ibabalik na naman ang mga Marcos sa kapangyarihan. They want to revise history and make the memory of the late strongman one of a glorious administration umunlad ang buhay ng Pilipino. Hindi ko pwedeng sang-ayunan yun. Ang daming matay ng mga kabataan na lumalaban para sa demokrasya ng mga panahon ng tatay mo. Hindi ka pa nagsosorry, binabago mo ng kasaysayan.
On the other hand, Atienza urged his supporters to not vote for him if they refuse to vote for Manny Pacquiao. The veteran politician believes that the country needs unity between the president and vice president.
It's not going to be Manny Pacquiao as president and Lito Atienza as vice president. I pray to God, huwag mo akong papanaluhin. And I ask all my friends, don't vote for me if you're not voting for Manny Pacquiao. Don't vote for me if you're voting for somebody else. You're voting for this president candidate, vote for his vice president para meron tayong harmony. Kaya lang ako pumayag dito to be of help to a good president. And to me, it's Manny Pacquiao.
The DOST says Sinovac and Clover Pharmaceuticals have applied to conduct clinical trials for the use of vaccines for children. To give us more details on this, we have Greg Gregorio now joining us live from Mandaluyong. Good afternoon again, Greg. Could you tell us the age range of the children who will be included in this proposed clinical trial for Sinovac and that of Clover?
Yes, Charles, good afternoon. According to the STPCHRD Executive Director Dr. Jaime Montoya, the age range under the pending clinical trial application of the Sinovac is their vaccine is for aging 6 months to 17 years old. While for Clover Biopharmaceuticals, the age range would be the same with the Pfizer and Moderna, which is from 12 to 17 years old. Charles?
Greg, I understand that the IATF has stopped accepting clinical trial applications for the general population. Could you give us the reason behind this?
Yes, Charles. According to Dr. Montoya, this is based on the proposal of the Department of Science and Technology to rather prioritize those clinical trial applications that would focus on trials of new generation vaccines that would address the concerns brought by the new variants of SARS-CoV-2, as well as the use of vaccines for specific populations such as the younger population or the healthcare workers. Charles?
All right, Greg, let's talk about the World Health Organization's Solidarity 2 trial. Do we have any updates on this?
Charles, according to Dr. Montoya, this has been delayed for about a year now, but Montoya explained that it is only because the WHO is the only one coordinating with countries like the Philippines, where their vaccine solidarity trial will be conducted. Here in the Philippines, this WHO solidarity trial for vaccines will be conducted by the Philippine Society for Allergy, Asthma, and Immunology. The trial protocols for this has already been approved by the ERB, or the Ethics and Regulatory Board, but the trial application is still with the FDA. According to Dr. Montoya, 4 vaccines will be used in this solidarity trial, but according to him, he cannot disclose what are these vaccines yet, and for the possibility of when to start, it is only the WHO who can answer, according to Dr. Montoya. Charles?
All right, Greg, we've been talking about the possibility of mixing and matching different vaccine brands. Do we know when the clinical trials for this will begin?
Charles, according to Dr. Montoya, the clinical trials for the mix and match hasn't started yet because the trial application is still with the FDA, and though they have already identified the sites where this trial will be conducted, and they have already identified how many participants would they need? According to Dr. Montoya, they would need 250 volunteers per vaccine brand, and they will be using Sinovac as the base of this study, and they would want to identify how effective would it be if after using Sinovac as the first dose, how would an individual react, or his or her generation of antibody would be affected if another brand of vaccine will be used for the second dose or for the third dose. Charles?
Greg, aside from vaccination, there are these so-called COVID-19 adjunct treatments, including VCO, Lagundi, and Tawa-Tawa. Do we have any updates on this?
Charles, according to Dr. Montoya, the earlier clinical trials for the use of virgin coconut oil to mild COVID-19 patients in Santa Rosa, Laguna, and as well as the in vitro or laboratory study for the antiviral activity of the virgin coconut oil have already been finished. But there is still an ongoing clinical trial for the use of such for hospitalized individuals, and the results is still pending. As for the clinical trials for the use of Lagundi, according to Dr. Montoya, it was already finished by mid-September, but the results are still pending with the review of experts. Montoya highlighted that they would need the results to be peer-reviewed before they would disclose it to the public. As to the last adjunct treatment that they are subjecting to a clinical trial, which is the use of Tawa-Tawa, according to Dr. Montoya, clinical trials are still being conducted, and they expect to give us results by November. Charles?
And as we know, Greg, vaccine supply and reliance on other countries is still very much an issue here in the Philippines. Do we have any news on the country's quest for vaccine self-sufficiency? When do authorities think this will start?
Charles, according to Dr. Montoya, there is still an ongoing feasibility study that is being conducted by the Asian Development Bank in relation to the vaccine self-sufficiency roadmap of the Philippines. There are also a number of negotiations with vaccine manufacturers that is ongoing. Currently, there are two manufacturers who have aired their interest in vaccine production here in the Philippines. But according to Montoya, as to the question of when could this be started here in the Philippines, Montoya explained that there are two possible systems. If this is a fill-in finish or a system where the components of the vaccine will be produced abroad or elsewhere while the packaging will be conducted here in the Philippines, this could happen after a year and a half or after 2 years and a half. But if we are talking about the full production of the vaccine, that could possibly be started here in the Philippines by latter part of 2024 or early 2025. Charles?
Thanks for that, Greg. That was Greg Gregorio reporting live from Mandaluyong. Here's a quick look at some of today's headlines. Tropical Depression Lani maintains its strength while moving west-northwestward over the West Philippine Sea. Facebook services are now starting to go back online after experiencing one of its longest global outages since last night. And Fumio Kishida is Japan's newly elected Prime Minister. And those are the top stories at this hour. Join us later at 2 p.m. as we continue to monitor the day's biggest stories. You can also catch One News on Signal Play. Just register for a free account at www.signalplay.com so you can stream One News live anytime and anywhere. I'm Charles Lejano. Mask on, wash hands, and stay safe, Philippines. We're One News.